Hello, all you spry tubers, twitchers, and pod people out there. Welcome to the Could You Do It Better podcast, where filmmaker, gamer extraordinaire, and the behind-the-scenes awesomeness known as Sesh, and the writing and directing sensation known as Maria, discuss popular television shows and movies and answer the always controversial question of, could you do it better? Today, we will be discussing episode 4 of season 1 of Ryan Condal's House of the Dragon television series based upon George R.R. Martin's novel, Fire and Blood. And as for me, I'm Jonathan the Intern, and unlike our two experts, have no industry experience whatsoever. In other words, I'm much like Sir Criston Cole, batted around by my employer like a playtoy, constantly in fear for being outside my depth and station, and always worrying that today will be the day I must slowly and methodically strip off my clothes, just to find out I'm simply a last-second replacement for the first choice and hire hot Daario Naharis. True words have never been spoken. And now to Sesh and Maria. Woo! We are back, folks. Another week of House of the Dragon, episode 4. And we've got some fun in store for the audience today because we actually have some dissenting opinions this week, which should make for a good episode. Maybe, we think. In any case, spoiler warning, in this episode, we will be doing a detailed recap of episode 4 of the House of the Dragon TV series that will indeed contain spoilers throughout. So if you haven't watched this episode and don't want to hear spoilers before you do, please feel free to put us on mute as you watch the episode, then rewatch our show afterwards. And that's how you double view counts. And now, on to the recap as mandated by our legal department. Yes, our legal department. We begin with an episode of The Dating Game. Rhaenyra's bringing it with her smoldering shoulderless dress. But who will she choose? Will it be geriatric bachelor number 1 who fancied her grandmother, or pediatric bachelor number 2, small in stature but proficient in killing Lannisters? Rhaenyra chooses to leave and will not get her year's supply of rice-a-roni. But wait, Rhaenyra hops aboard the good ship Lollipop, where she shares a lighthearted chat with bachelor number 3, Sir Criston Cole, who just so happens to be the person who invented surrounding oneself with truly terrible dating options to look better in your possible suitor's eyes. Surprise! Demon dragon attack! And nothing happens. On to King's Landing, where angry Doctor Who shows off his new crown and his beauty parlor perm that he copied from Janice from down the street. Angry Doctor Who drops the hammer on Viserys. Viserys asks, "Whoa, bruh, since you're here, then who's, running the stepstones?" Daemon confidently says, well, the dead bodies of infidels. Idiots. Clearly, this entire family needs to stop breeding. And the brothers make up and throw a backyard barbecue. Ah, yes. Angsty ex-besties talk between Rhaenyra and Alicent. Just what this show needed. Woe is the plight of women. But nothing gets besties back together like talking about bad dating experiences. Yay, BFFs forever! On to creepy uncle niece talk flirting time. Angry Doctor Who complains about his wife's uterus to Rhaenyra. Yep, that sounds like the family barbecues I'm used to. Use of exposition is at an all-time high as Rhaenyra explains why she doesn't want kids. On to the small council meeting, where we learn that the king's spurning of Corlys and Laena in favor of Alicent is leading to an alliance between Braavos and Corlys, creating quite the strong enemy for the crown. Also on news at 11, no kidding. Non-purposeful cut to Alicent holding a fussy baby. On to Rhaenyra, who finds a secret message tucked into her bag showing her which statue hides the secret entrance into the Temple of Doom and the cult of Kali. Rain Deanna Jones gets in disguise as street beggar Jasmine, where she meets up with Daemon, who takes her on a tour of the seedy underbelly of King's Landing, which apparently is not unlike Moulin Rouge, just with less singing and no Nicole Kidman. Rhaenyra's like, best date ever. On to King Viserys getting his sponge bath. Looks like he lost more than his pinky. Cut back to Rhaenyra and Daemon now watching the worst penny theater imaginable, where Rhaenyra learns her people don't consider her worthy of rule and openly jeer her character. And if I've learned anything from King's Landing, that's pretty much the only requirement for ruling. Intercut Rhaenyra being taken to X-rated Cirque du Soleil, with the necrotic body of Viserys getting intimate with the near comatose Alicent. Daemon brings Rhaenyra to an orgy, which she enjoys for some reason. I can't get through this week. Well, this is Game of Thrones, so on to the uncle-niece makeout time. But before we proceed to straight-up incest, Daemon deserts her, leaving her there half-naked. Rhaenyra does the walk of shame home, where she jumps Sir Criston Cole. It could almost be deemed romantic. Well, if it weren't for him being the rebound guy after a failed romantic attempt with her uncle. Of course, walks of shame are called just that because someone just might see you and tell a parent who's friends with your daddy what you've been up to. Over to Mysaria and Daemon, paying the kid who caught Rhaenyra and Daemon, showing it was a setup all along. How shocking. The Hand informs Viserys of his daughter's scandalous treachery, and the king calls him out for the ambitious, conniving, obvious schemer that he is. Whoa! Wait, where did this come from? The king sends him away to go to bed without his supper. Cut to Alicent, angry at her bestie for not spilling the tea about her hot night with her uncle, and instead having to hear it from her father. Rhaenyra smartly goes to the Shaggy defense. It wasn't me. And then Rhaenyra swears it on the memory of her dead mother. That not cool. Meanwhile, Daemon gets called to the Iron Throne by his brother for his spanking. He uses the best to keep it in the family defense, which in the history of mankind has never worked. Daemon then proceeds to ask for her hand in marriage. Worst proposal ever. Viserys pulls his knife, which is an incredible feat considering he has 1.5 fingers at this point. Viserys tells Daemon to go home. On to daddy-daughter talk time. The king tells Rhaenyra she will wed Laenor Velaryon to make things all good again. Rhaenyra agrees, but gives him the ultimatum that he must lop off his lying, deceitful hand first. The king interprets this as thanking the hand for his hard work and asking for his stuff back, then sending the maester to his daughter with a nice, refreshing morning after tea. End episode. This episode is brought to you by Purely Protection. Do you wonder if you found the one? Caught between chastity and chastisement? Are you worried that that special someone in your life might succumb to the temptation of those free-range strumpets? Here at Purely Protection, we provide you with the finest quality full plate mail to protect your man's maidenhood. From made-to-fit cuirasses, pauldrons, sabatons, folds, and vambraces to custom jerkins and tunics with all the bindings, we make it nigh impossible for one to find themselves in an accidental romantic entanglement. In fact, if you can get your Purely Protection off in under 60 minutes, we'll send you a full refund, no questions asked. That's Purely Protection, where we're hard on for your manhood. Back to you, Sesh and Maria.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy. Thank you for all of that.
No problem. No problem. You know, legal makes sure we cover all our bases. We need to keep
all the points.
That's right. That's right.
Start over.
Okay. So, first question. Does the intimacy or lack thereof in this episode drive the story forward? Why were we watching this?
Just ripping off the Band-Aid early.
My question may just have a little attitude in it, but that's what it is.
I want that attitude.
Sash, you want to start us off?
No, you go first with attitude, because I think I'm the one that hated this the least.
All right. So. I'm hopping on it then. So let's see here. The whole purpose of this episode was to build up to getting the princess to agree to wed Laenor, illustrate how Alicent is essentially a captive queen on call, and show how Daemon is bad, but not as bad as he could be, I guess. I don't think the Precest was necessary. I don't think watching Alicent perform her duties under a rotting king was necessary, unless they wanted me to see Rhaenyra as a liar, wannabe incester, self-centered, potential rapist, and manipulator, and trash any glimmer of feeling I had for her wanting to take the throne. My motive for watching the show is now purely to talk trash about it, since I have no vested interest in anyone being on the throne at this point. What a waste of time. That's my thoughts.
I mean, I do agree. But
we need to copyright the term precest. That is new. We can put that on shirts. No, oh no, we can't. No. Oh no. Well, there's HR. See them already. Oh dear.
yeah, I mean, you haven't been hate watching, because I think that's why I hated this episode less than you guys. I've been hate watching this whole time.
Oh.
Like, it happened very early on. I'm like, no, the show is not it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'll go. You are 100% right with all of that. That is everything that happened. And that is how I feel after everything. Yeah. But this is sometimes why I wish we watched together. Because there was just this one well-edited look that Daemon gave Ray early on when he came back, where he perfectly conveyed a little something extra, if you know what I mean.
Everybody knows what you mean, Sesh.
Right. But this was, before the episode finished and everything. This was very early on, which was not something I would have called in any prior episode at all. Like, they obviously had a strong bond and kindred spirit, but I guess leave it to the Targaryens to get all weird and sexual with their kinships. But yeah, I left last episode having no idea where any of this was going, but I really wouldn't have been able to make this episode's plot points if I had tried to guess them. Absolutely not. This was all just from left field for me. Other than her getting with Cole, which it's recorded. I definitely called that one at least. So, but yeah, this episode felt like a full episode worth of actual B plot. There was actually kind of a through line and stuff that was happening. It still isn't worthy of A plot kind of stuff for me. But I mean, yeah, it's because the A plot has still been non-existent. I still don't see the overarching, it's just her trying to get on the throne. Is that really our A plot? That's kind of, okay. It's still lacking some of the important stuff, moving the main plot forward or raising really any stakes. There weren't really any stakes raised with all these things that happened. Everybody immediately found out, and then it's just all right, cool, so just go back away and then drink this tea and we're done. So I felt that it conveyed the intimacy as they intended it to, where it's not really that heartfelt, but where she took charge of it, which I think was really the main goal of it, rather than it being actually intimate. I felt like the instances, in my opinion, they quickly became redundant too. But it did feel natural enough. I don't really want to use the word natural, but but I wasn't pulled out of the story. And I'm honestly probably a little bit more interested to watch now that I finally got a small taste of what, Game of Thrones actually was. It wasn't, a highlight of the Game of Thrones series at all. We got the brother sister, we got, all of that stuff. And I'm less pleased that it's in our, it's going to be a central plot point for our main protagonist. That's tough to do, especially since I haven't actually grown to like her yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, Sesh, because when we've seen basically this covered before, in Game of Thrones. Like, the stakes were just so large. Like, this is, you have in the first episode a kid being kicked out of a window. Well, what would cause something like that? Oh, a queen is having an affair with her brother. Okay, you know, it's like, it makes sense. Like it's understandable. Even, you know, in the scene later on where Cersei's sexually assaulted, you know, by Jaime, you know, in the Sept, that actually also still makes sense for the show. And you know, it's just, I legitimately have no idea. You know, I really don't, because I'm deeply struggling to figure out what exactly the story is at this point. You know, it seems that the overall story is less about what is going on with the Targaryens and Westeros as a whole, and more about the struggles of women in this setting. I mean, I guess. So from that perspective, yeah, maybe. I mean, showing how women are treated differently sexually than men and how there's a clear double standard when it comes to allowed behavior does indeed continue to show women's struggles. But overall, this had absolutely no bearing or importance on anything else in the story, in my opinion. The sad part in all of this is that there are ways to effectively show the struggles of women in this setting in an intellectual and innovative way. And yet the show is using just such a heavy-handed expositional approach to it. I mean, for me, it's difficult to see much of any value in it. I mean, so for me, like this is the part I disagree with you, Sesh. Like, I didn't see really Game of Thrones in this. Like, I saw topics that were broached in Game of Thrones, but I didn't see anything close to the stakes, the meaning, the reasoning for it.
I mean, there's no real strong female character we can get behind yet.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no, that definitely.
Daenerys, like, you could get behind her, you know, you could see her.
Yeah, like for me, like I said, it feels like, okay, this is all just B plot stuff that's like finally feeling flushed out. But yeah, there's still no A plot. And yeah, with the theme of women's suffrage throughout this, it's done so poorly. It's so on the nose. There's no subtlety, nothing good about it. And yeah, I think you pulled it, and I think that might actually be the main theme they're trying to make this whole show about, which is very not Game of Thrones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There were little obstacles, but those again were, you know, little things for the characters. They were their own personal obstacles. It wasn't the theme of the show.
Right.
Very good point,
and exactly. Like, you can show that as B plot. You can show that as C plot. You can show behind the scenes where you're seeing emotion of people. You're seeing what the consequences of these actions are. Like, you just don't have to just keep swinging your hammer at this. Like,
so speaking of swinging hammers, question number 2. Does Daemon even seem to really want to be the king? What does he want? Who wants to start us off?
I can start with this one, you know, and the answer to me is I actually don't think Daemon wants to be king. You know, I think he just really wants attention and to be loved by all while also doing what he wants. In episode 1, he behaves like an absolute maniac. In episode 2, he acts like a childish, spoiled brat. In episode 3, he simply has a resting, brooding face the whole episode, taking idiotic actions. And here in this episode, he acts like the misunderstood emo boy who does things because they don't matter anyways. The only thing that connects these crazy character changes episode to episode are that he just doesn't want to be treated as a second son. Well, you know, that, or the writers haven't collectively figured out how to write his character yet, which also could be the case. Like, it just seems that the mapping for Daemon's character before the series started, just for people who are listening, often you want to map your characters appropriately.
Arc. Yeah, show what their arc is, show what makes them tick.
Exactly. Their desires, their fears, you know, and it just seems absent for him. Or if it's done, it's being done episode to episode independently by each writer on the staff, because it's all over the place.
I'm gonna go ahead and piggyback what you're saying. I think Daemon is going through the motions, but he does not seem himself interested in being king. Sure, he tries to force a marriage between himself and the future queen by getting her seen with him in the whorehouse, but his attempt to negotiate with the king felt half-hearted, and like that wasn't really what he was after. He's like, oh yeah, I can marry her. It's like, no, oh, okay. You know, ooh, big sticks there. I don't think Daemon is after love or money or even fame. He seems to be waiting for something. Keeping him mysterious and broody doesn't work when there's no real way to see into his life past the moments where he is manipulating. I need the why so that I can decide if I care.
Yeah.
I do have a theory that when he went into the cave, the crab feeder is some kind of shapeshifter, killed him, and now it's the crab feeder acting like Daemon. I'm sticking
the crab
with
feeder
that.
is back.
Disappointed with everything else.
What's your
So I mean, yeah, no, I feel the same. Like, all of a sudden, like, this episode, despite the actions and how it was described for the reasons behind the actions, it feels like suddenly he doesn't really want the throne. So I know it was supposed to be a serious scene, but with like him and the king, when the king confronts him about her and the night escapades, there was a part where I laughed out loud. Like, this is when the king said, "You don't lust for my daughter, you lust for my throne." Like, first off, how the hell do you answer that? I laughed again when they cut to looking at Damien's face and his expression when he broke eye contact, completely conveying exactly what I just thought. How should I answer that?
Oh.
Like, I know it's supposed to be serious, but yes, it's like he definitely wants power, but like at the same time, I don't think he has ambition. It's to have a much higher life than he already lives. Like he just, I think, kind of just wants the respect to do whatever he wants. Like, he's not trying to. I don't feel like he's trying to go conquer. Everything he does is reactive. I think he just wants to enjoy life and do what he wants. Like, I don't think he knows he doesn't want the responsibility that comes with the crown. And I think he definitely wants more power, but I think he would actually just be happy living his life as he does with a better title and like people not giving him crap. I think honestly too, I think he does actually really like Ray and maybe legitimately does want her as his wife. He had no reason really to return to King's Landing, I think, except maybe her. I think he might have gone back with the intention of spending more time with her, especially with that night out being planned as it was. I mean, yeah, but it's tough because that's a new motivation from him suddenly, rather than him just being always okay with his kid niece. Did a 180 there.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, if we want to go real deep on this one, to bend over backwards for stop it. Maria, you're banned.
They finally gave us all the scenes we didn't even care to have, and we're gonna not be mature about it.
No. You know, we can go ahead and say, oh, you know, was Daemon really playing for the throne? And then he saw Rhaenyra there, and he deeply regretted what he was doing, and that's why he left, and that's why he was hungover. He didn't care, like if his brother, who has like half a hand and maybe part of his back, you know,
rotting.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, you see Masseria going ahead and paying off the kid, so it's obvious he was in on it, but maybe he regretted it. But I mean, Game of Thrones would have done something like that just so much better. And a lot, it would be, I wouldn't say it would be more clear, like they did tend to guard people's participation in these events, but there'd be a lot more intrigue into what is going on. There'd be build up to it. It would be over multiple episodes where it's like, oh, you remember what happened 3 episodes ago? Well, it was actually this character. It felt really, really shallow to me, even if you go that far.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a setup. It just feels like some things happened.
So that leads us to our next question. Would it have been better drama if the princess didn't go along with Daemon and was falsely accused?
Well, I guess I'll take it again. For me, I'm going to say yes to this one, but I'd also like to see actual stakes here. I think this would have gone over much better if there is a malicious rumor running around King's Landing about Rhaenyra and Daemon, and she's forced to explain herself in front of the king and council after the Hand, via Daemon, gets several people to step forward saying that not only is she having an illicit affair with her uncle, but she was blaspheming the king and his leadership as well. Where you have the bulk of King's Landing and the council calling for her head, and King Viserys must choose what course to take. That I think could have led somewhere, as what was written just had so little value to the plot and so little stakes that I don't know why it was included in the script, other than to have Matt Smith and Amelia Alcock, make out. I don't know. Maybe it was in the HBO contract for greenlighting, to show that would happen. But I just don't know why the show didn't start after this.
That's a really good point in that include more of the world judging her to build the stakes. For me, I don't think it mattered because the king didn't let any drama take place. His reaction was so muted, it was yawn-worthy. He tells his brother his stay is over and sends his daughter abortion tea. That's his whole reaction. Okay, I mean, if fire runs through Targaryen veins, he must have been born on a rainy day or something.
A winter child.
Assuming he were to have reacted like a normal king and forced her into a tower or of isolation and burned his brother alive, then yes, it would have been more dramatic if she was actually wholly innocent. That's my thoughts.
No.
And his crib was a water dragon.
Yeah.
Water dragon. Yeah, I mean, like, as it is, like,
Loch Ness.
One, there was all the rumors are already, it already happened, all within encompassing like one episode rather than going from, one episode to episode number, the next one, whatever. But as it is, like, everyone's like moderately like okay with it. Like, she got a little bit of a chewing out, but like, it would have been nice for like the rumors on this evening to spread a little bit and there'd actually be time for that and to see like some of those repercussions. Like, it would have, for example, like, it would have been really nice if, like, oh, they'd maybe been hanging out and, like, they were spotted, like, a couple of nights. Like, this other night they went to the bar. Like, they, sneak out, like, once a week, and we see, like, a little bit of a time lapse of this rather than just this one night. So, like, the play, for example, that they were watching, this could have had that rumor within it. But, like, that's kind of a missed opportunity there. Like, the rumor would have been effective, like, even if like Daemon never made a move and they weren't going in this way, like, there still could have been those rumors and that still would have been more interesting. Like, we're going to see what's going to be more interesting is if I think she did end up pregnant. I mean, likely with Cole's baby, I think. I don't know. It was only implied, but it maybe he got the ball, Daemon got the ball rolling. We'll see where it goes from there, but yeah, I mean, unless she is pregnant. Like,
that is one thing that I could see. Okay, I see a reason for showing this episode, which is that it winds up she actually is pregnant. And they find out that at the betrothal or wedding to Laenor,
Yeah.
and everybody goes ahead and assumes that it's that it's the uncle, you know, and everything like breaks loose, you know, because that would actually make sense. I might actually, if that happened, upvote this episode a little bit from where it is, because I'd be like, wow, all right, they finally set something up in this show, which is
that would be a setup. And then instead of white hair and dark skin, or white hair and white skin, the baby comes out with white skin and dark hair.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Cole's done for, I think. He's gonna have some repercussions later, I think.
So on to our next question. The princess does not seem to care much about the populace. Why exactly does she want to be queen?
Basic blind girl boss stuff. So for me, I have no idea why she wants to be queen. What she wants as queen, other than the same thing that all the women want, is just more respect. I just appreciate somebody finally giving her good leadership advice, and of course it had to come from Daemon on their night out. Oh boy. Okay, well, I find that what she wants to be is looked at different than the other women and peers of her time in this world. Like, since her mom's death and the life she had of just trying to pop out babies, quote, until she died, definitely had an effect on her. And so I think she very much doesn't want to live that life as a queen herself. But besides just being different, I still don't have any idea what she wants, other than maybe riding her dragon more often and to be able to be a show of force. But in just a very general sense, that she just wants to not care about the traditions of when you're born a woman, which that's fine. But again, I think that is what it is, because I think is probably the theme of this whole show, and it's not being executed well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think she cares about the ego of not wanting to be passed up, wanting to feel chosen and important. But I think if she were a boy, even, she would be a terrible king, because she lacks empathy for the people around her. I think she's just too young to know what she wants. She wants to prove the world a woman can do what a man can do, even if that means sleep with anyone she sees fit. That motive does not a ruler make, is my thoughts.
Yeah, I'll go a little deeper, because I think they've set it up over the past several episodes. But you know, overall, I think she has no desire to be queen whatsoever. You know, and in fact, I think what the show is trying to show here is that that much like Daemon, she just wants to feel the love and affection of her family and not be treated as some second class person. I do think that the writers and the showrunners have clearly mirrored Daemon's and Rhaenyra's characters, such that in a lot of ways they have the same drives and desires, and they both feel like they're unwanted and unloved, to the point where maybe both believe that the only way they'll be able to get respect from people is by sitting on the Iron Throne, which is what you two both said. You know, that said, I agree with Maria. Rhaenyra has shown absolutely no traits of what would make a good leader. You know, she's selfish, she's angry, she's impulsive, and she has an unwillingness to negotiate, compromise, or seek counsel unless it's on her own terms. You know, she has no desire to strengthen her position, family lines, or have offspring, and has a general unwillingness to do anything the position of ruler requires, you know, at this point in time. So if she does actually want to be queen, I have no idea where that's coming from outside of wanting her father's respect, which, again, I think this is the recurring theme of the show. Basically, people being passed over, whether for gender, whether because they're second born, but just general unfairness and how they deal with it.
Yeah. I just don't understand why they don't show the kingship or the actual ruling to be more appealing than it is, because why does anybody want this? All right, moving on to the next question. Does Daemon's reasoning for sleeping with his niece normalize incest and cause harm to society? Is this hedonism or worse? Who wants to take this first?
I mean, yes. Any of this ever conveyed positively in media is a form of normalizing it, which isn't cool in a sense. But at the same time, I think with something portrayed as a taboo and not okay, even if simultaneously done, it can't, like, as a wrong, even if like the right characters are doing it, it can still send the message that this is not how things should be. I do find it extremely gross and terrible, and I never want to make any projects with any positive light being shined on this kind of stuff. But it's what Game of Thrones has done in the past, so I'm not surprised or grossed out, just since I was sort of expecting something along this lines eventually in the show, even though it's been very lackluster so far. But it's also, you know, it's grossly what a lot of human history has done with monarchs. And it's gnarly and weird, but we already had a previous episode where it was suggested she weds, I believe it was her half-brother. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I was prepared for the gross mindset already. I do wish they portrayed this stuff with it being more disgusting and creepy, like they did with like the hermit in the woods back with the other show, who only kept his female offspring around. You know, Guinea's dad.
Yeah.
And of course, all the I mean, I'm just gonna say that we could censor this, but just like all the bitchy Lannisters, and all of their own incest and stuff. Like I expect this from the series. It's just, I mean, like I mentioned, like it's just not one of the highlights or draws of the show. It's just kind of there to just show you how far some of the characters will go, but it's not really the most effective highlight, I think.
Yeah, for me, it made me very angry. In spite of this being a fantasy with characters from different realms that have their own set of rules for right and wrong, we're taking this in as a society, and we already live in a pretty disturbing world where there's human trafficking and disturbing elements all around us. I didn't appreciate it in Game of Thrones, but it is just downright horrific to see Daemon reason it away like no big deal, and essentially the king doesn't do much in response. I felt like with Game of Thrones, at least there was fallout for their behavior. So like, what does that tell creeps out there is what I'm saying. I feel like it gives messed up people a voice to do more messed up things, and there won't be any consequences. That's what bothers me. It's like, okay, they portray stuff and it's like, okay, maybe that happened because that's what rulers did, but look at the consequences. But look at how messed up Cersei is. But look at how, you know, all these things. Mm-hmm. Like, blasé, laissez-faire, whatever. And the king's like, yeah, you know, anyway, see you later. Like, really?
Or marry her off to her half-brother before you. Like,
Yeah.
Her toddler half-brother.
Like, I gagged a little bit when that suggestion was made. Like, no.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this raises an even broader point or broader issue about, you know, where your First Amendment rights start and end, you know, in terms of freedom of speech, freedom of portrayal. And in general, for myself, I'm actually very, very lenient when it comes to when it comes to not allowing censorship. Like I definitely believe that most rights, you know, in regards to what you're portraying, should be respected and allowed, and not downright censored. You know, when it comes to violence, or when it comes to gore, or it comes to sexually explicit stuff, you know, it's like I think that for the most part it should be generally non-banned or non-censored, but I do think there are some exceptions to that, and I think there needs to be a fundamental question there asked, that whenever you do a show or art piece or literature or whatever it may be, featuring, your extreme violence or gore or sex or depravity. Does this have importance to the story or character definition and progression of that character, or is this here for no other reason other than shock value? And in this case, well, I definitely won't go as far as to say that scenes like the one between Daemon and Rhaenyra are harmful to society, as I just don't have enough statistical information on the correlation between, say, seeing incestuous actions on television versus performing incestuous actions in reality. But I do know this absolutely added nothing to the script and was simply there to shock people. And I'll even further the point with this. I would actually say in general, having violent video games, having explicit music, showing violence or gore in movies, probably I would almost wager that it actually has an inverse relationship to people committing these actions. When you consider the nature of the actions of an uncle carrying on sexual relationships with their underage niece, who they've basically groomed since birth, it does, in my opinion, seem to have a wanton disregard for predatory behavior and sexual deviancy we unfortunately see take place all too often in society, as Maria said. And quite frankly, I do think it's an awful taste and served absolutely no value to this episode or the show in general. And so while I won't say that it normalizes this type of behavior, I do get the feeling that people who engage in this behavior already will sadly find justification for their actions in this episode. And I just don't think that's something a screenwriter showrunner would find acceptable. So I'm not saying this should be censored. I'm just saying there should have probably been a little bit more care, I think, taken with this to say, why is this necessary? What are the stakes of this? Where are we going with this than we're taking in this episode?
Well said. Well said. All right. Moving on to our next question. Gotta recover. Okay. Is chalking up bad behavior to having the blood of dragons an excuse to ignore poor parenting? How would you have responded to finding this out about your daughter? Who would like to take this first? I can go. I think people like to make excuses for bad behavior that they know they could change if they worked hard at it. However, I missed what you said.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Did we lose you for a second?
Yeah, you lost me for a second there. Internet popped out. Am I interrupting? Were you in the middle of yours, Maria?
Oh, I just started. So I'll keep going.
Sesh, were you trying to say something on the last question or this one?
I was going to push back a little bit on some of the stuff you said. They've done studies, and I'm somebody who I've obviously played violent video games, and I like my violent movies and all of that. But at the same time, sometimes the wrong thing is something that the wrong person sees, and it can affect them. I think this is just really cheap, gimmicky stuff where we obviously know once the people behind Game of Thrones stop having their hand held with the story and where things should go, they really dropped the ball. And I feel like this kind of choice was one of the decisions that they would have made, look at the Lannisters, the incest couple. I bet we could make a whole show based on that. And they kind of missed the point that wasn't like the thing people liked about them.
I hope.
We'll talk to the showrunners about that, but yeah.
So I don't know if you heard our next question. Did you? So our next question is Is chalking up bad behavior to having the blood of dragons an excuse to ignore poor parenting? How would you have responded to finding this out about your daughter? All right, so I'm gonna go. I think it's a cop-out, and it only gives the people exhibiting the behavior excuse to continue acting as they please. Oh, I just murdered all those people because of the darn dragon's blood I have. You know, the king has no idea how to raise children or run anything. He's not even strong enough to say no to sitting in a chair that is rotting away his body. If Rhaenyra were my daughter, I would sit her down and ask her what about her uncle, so attractive to her, was it the danger element? I would ask her why she wants to be queen and how she sees herself as a person. I would really want to hear where she is at on her self-worth to feel the need to pine for her uncle and risk her entire reputation and seat in line for the throne for it. I would probably also have Daemon vaporized by as many dragons I could gather.
There it is. Okay, I was waiting for that.
Yes, good. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring up the line again. So you lust for my...
Oh, no.
Oh, unfortunately, it looks like Sesh is having some internet problems.
There we go. Am I back now?
You're back.
Yeah, you're back.
Yep. So I brought up the line again, you don't lust for my daughter, you lust for my throne. Why, WTF, what is that question? Why is that what he is asking? What is he actually mad about? Like, which of those two issues actually has him more mad? Mad that somebody else wants his place on the throne that he got since he was the only one that was born male? Is that really what he's fighting for? That he's angry about that somebody else wants? Like, he really doesn't like seeing either people work for, what he has, because other people seem to be ambitious. Oh God, he seems to hate that, man. Yeah, like he's just not done a good job raising his daughter. The one peer and person she had that she could bounce ideas off of, grow with, and be friends with is now his baby making machine. And he's not had a second thought about that at all. Like, it's really like Ray is acting out, understandably, a new way every single different week. And over this is now 6 years. And we know she's been acting out every week that entire time. I was hoping for a lot more from him after last episode, and they had a little bit of a moment of camaraderie and, him respecting her a little bit. I mean, I'm sure hard to do that after this, but it's still just, it's like so clear she needs a conversation with an adult.
Yep.
And yeah, she absolutely would need a talk. I echo everything you said, how to handle it. Daemon should be vaporized. She needs a very strong talking to about how the danger element is just it's just so obviously it's just the danger element for her, and that's just a sign of somebody acting out.
Yeah, the sad thing is I don't even think Viserys understands how terrible a father he's been. While I don't think your blood or ethnicity justifies bad behavior, I do feel that terrible upbringing does indeed excuse some poor decisions. For example, if you weren't raised to understand right from wrong and only taught viciousness and cruelty, it'd be difficult for me to say that the person is entirely to blame for their behavior. And I would wonder how the person might behave if brought into a positive and loving environment. As for how I would have handled this as Viserys, the first thing I would have done is actually similar to the king. Ask how the hand got his information and who his source is. But based on Otto's response, two things wouldn't have flown with me right away. First, you're saying this based on the word of a secret source? You wish to stay secret from the king? What exactly gives you that power or right? I mean, heck, just suggesting that to a king sounds sketchy and treasonous to me, And then second, you're saying you question multiple people about this. furthering this rumor before bringing it to me immediately under extreme discretion, despite knowing the damage this could do both to her and the crown, that for sure could be construed as treason. You know, after that, I'd go to Rhaenyra's bedchamber alone to speak with her, tell her that people are insinuating rumors about her, and to just please be honest as possible with me about what happened last night so I can get her side of the story and sort fact from fiction. You know? And I'd go so far to promise her that no matter what she tells me, I'll protect her so long as it's the truth. The hilarious thing about all that is she'd probably tell me about her night with Sir Criston Cole, and I'd likely be losing my mind while pretending to stay calm. Then say,
how was the night?
Yeah. Then say, wait, so you didn't sneak off to the brothels with Daemon?
No, totally did.
Yeah, and then she'd be embarrassed and tell me about how she snuck off to the orgy with him, and my brain would just be melting out of my ears, and
You rejected me, Dad.
and I really think about how my life got to this point.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, and then somehow, you know, I managed to say, I don't even know how. I'd be basically catatonic at this point, but in other words, officially, nothing happened last night between you and Daemon. And she died, yeah. And I'd say, okay, I appreciate you telling me the truth. Just please, before you make these risky, life-changing choices in the future, just, you know, maybe come to me, drop by, talk to me about it first.
Dad, can I be with my uncle? No.
No, you can't. You know, I'll go ahead and listen in a totally non-judgmental fashion. And we'll go to there. You know, I tell her I love her and ask if there's anything I can do for her, if she just wants to talk, you know, and find out how interested she is in Criston and if he's a good guy. You know, then I leave, bash Daemon's head in, and putting him in a cell deep underground. He's not getting out of that cell ever. Nobody is finding out about that cell. That's my special personal cell. And, you know, I'd go along, execute the hand for treason, because I'd be like, listen, he said an unsubstantiated rumor to like half the people in this court, which clearly was not true and not the case. And I do have clear and concrete evidence that did not happen, you know. And I'd summon Sir Criston for some private sparring practice where I get to ask him all the kinds of fun questions that dad asks their daughter's boyfriends that scare the living heck out of them. Then I'd go back to my room, stare at my miniatures, and just, you know, look blankly into space for probably the next few days as I get a couple vitamin C transfusions. and call it a night. So that would be me. And oh boy, daughters.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, that wraps up our questions for the evening. We do have our final big question.
But of course, before we do,
Yes.
let's check out whether we have any questions from our listeners
of
out
course.
there or audience. So going ahead and reading. Oh, what an intro from Bear UNLV. Thank you,
Okay.
Bear. We appreciate that. Thank you for listening and joining us. It sounds like, or it looks like on the different venues, no questions tonight for today's episode. So let's continue on to
Yes.
the
It
final-
wasn't even a
Ratings.
questionable episode, huh?
We're on to ratings, and I'm asking, would you continue to watch? We're bringing that question back this episode. Sesh, you want to get us started on your
I
thoughts?
mean, it definitely was lacking a lot, but I kind of think it was well done for what it was. Maybe more so than other episodes. It still, was completely missing some big parts, but I think there was a little bit more subtlety here. It was a little bit better crafted. I'll push this to a better rating than I'd give the other episodes. I think that is currently probably like a 6 out of 10. But I haven't retroactively lowered all my ratings yet, so keep that in mind. Like this one's only like 2 points better than any of the others at best, and those ones should probably actually be like rated 2 instead of 4. But yeah, there's still just, it sucks in a way. I knew it would. Like there just still feels like there's no A plot, like there is no main plot here. Like this episode probably wouldn't have real repercussions, weirdly enough, unless our main character had some completely uncharacteristic 180 and actually chooses not to rid herself of the child and the consequences of her actions. If she is pregnant, that would be interesting, I think, but it would also be really terrible writing because that is just not the character they have made her out to be. As much as I'd like to see it, it would be very wrong, especially since the choice, they did give her a choice. So right after this episode, I was happy with it, okay with what it, with what it was. Just again, I've been hate watching and I have very low expectations. But the more I've been sitting on it, the less I like it. I still don't know where it's all going. Like, I imagine we could just Google search, Dany Targaryen's ancestry and know where this is going, and there won't be anything else interesting. Like, ooh, did she or didn't she with her uncle? Like, how far back does the incest go with the Targaryens? And that's going to be the main plot points. So, I'm a hate watcher, so I guess I'll continue. if you guys make me.
That's your Google search right there, Sesh. Exactly when did incest start for the Targaryens?
That's it. That is exactly what it is, and that's what this story is going to be about.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Sesh, for lightening up this review. I want to point out, by the way, to anybody who's new watching our show, like we don't do this where we just negatively pan shows. Like this is not us. Like honestly, we like finding the good in shows and talking about that and saying, wow, what great writing, what good directorial choices here. So it's with this, I don't even know what to say at this point, because I agree. I have no idea why House of the Dragon, first of all, had these first 4 episodes and decided to make this one. Like, it does nothing for the story. It features some of the most expository dialogue for the series, which sadly is saying quite a lot. And somehow it managed to subvert even the meager intrigue it attempted to introduce within this episode. It's like, interesting, a secret note to Rhaenyra. What's going to happen to her? Oh, nothing. So, it's I just, I don't know. The character writing, it's just all over the map. It isn't consistent from episode to episode. The dialogue in a lot of ways is very simple and soulless, and the characters are primarily one-dimensional. We haven't even seen a glimpse of what motivates or drives these characters yet, aside from that surface level, most base of human desires. And I don't know why the show needed these first 4 episodes. Why not just start then right before the Rhaenyra-Laenor wedding, introducing the plot lines and the hooks through those scenes. And you can draw that out over a few episodes as people prepare and get ready for it. Because I just don't see these 4 episodes adding much of anything to the plot line other than elementary history that could have been stated or not even stated, and you introduce introduce the characters right there. For example, in Game of Thrones, when they're showing King Baratheon and Lannisters, visit the North, and Bran getting kicked out of a window, they didn't do a deep explanation of like the narrative and the history up to that point. They just went in and you're like, whoa, what is this show that I'm watching? And overall, this has, and I'm sorry to keep comparing this to Game of Thrones. This is a different show,
Yes, but.
Right. I just, this has been, for me, an incredibly disappointing viewing experience. And I don't see how this show, based off of the writing that it has, the plot lines that it has, the character writing and the mapping that it has, I don't see how it could have possibly been picked up if it wasn't for the Game of Thrones branding. Like, this is simply put, not a good show. And I like saying some positives, so from what I saw, the positives of this episode were the acting performances, especially of, I thought, Patty Considine as Viserys, I think did a good job. I think Millie Alcock did a very good job in this. And I think Matt Smith, until the very end, did a very good job in this. I understand why they went in that direction, but I would have liked to see something more out of his character instead of, just passed out, like getting manhandled by the king. I'd like to see him basically at that point just be depressed, and just not putting up a fight. Like, you see that he could fight the king if he wanted to, and him just getting beaten by the king because he knows he was wrong. He actually wants to be punished, and just the king never doing it. And it explains things, And, I thought the cinematography was very good. I thought the costumes were very good, but honestly, that's about it. So I might be overly harsh, but I judge the writing, the dialogue, the characters, and the plot a lot more than I do cinematography and costumes. So I have to give this episode, I've never given an episode a grade this low. I'm giving it a 2.5 out of 10. This is a solid F for me. And if you're watching the show, I honestly would bet that in a few episodes, if you skip this episode, you wouldn't even know that you missed anything. You'd have
skip the first 5 episodes.
Yep.
And hopefully the 6th episode, it'll finally feel like, okay, now we're getting somewhere and going somewhere. And all of this crap could have just been backstory that'll come up later if it's relevant.
Yeah, for me, this was a -1.
Oh
gosh.
I'm making 3. It's like the best episode I've seen as a 3. Rerating it.
The storytelling was perverse and pointless to me. Everything that was set up could have been completely skipped. We could have opened this whole episode, like you said, on her getting married, getting ready to marry Laenor, and nothing would have been lost. If you wanted to do the struggles with her unresolved feelings for Daemon, it could have been firstly, we could have shown that the king was somewhat smart by first introducing her to all these frogs and then bringing Laenor on board. And she's like, oh, he's not so bad. And he's kind of on board with this. Maybe he does something or shows that he's just as weak as her dad, and Daemon swoops in and saves the day, and now she's conflicted. Like, well, now I really like him. You could do something to make her character a little more have something.
It actually would have been nice to have, at least a little something between them where they got along. Like, bring up the Lannisters again. We see early on, they just are doing what they're doing. But we also very much see that they found a way to care for each other, and it's not just gnarly lust. It's just gnarly.
Yeah, have a real reason for it past I'm just bored or something.
Acting out, yeah.
I honestly do not want to keep watching this show. But I'm making the sacrifice for the audience.
We gotta have one series that we just all hate every episode of. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna put my money on us not actually really liking any of these episodes. Not one episode. Is it only 10 episodes? Please tell me it's only 10.
Oh, we need to look that up.
Oh, I hope it only goes to 10.
Like you said, I do give a nod to the cinematography. That was beautiful. The way they set up the scenes was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
It was nicely done. It still did seem though that the contrast was still muted and low and dark and things like that. But the story did not do the camera work justice, which was really sad because you could tell that a lot of thought was put into how the scenes would look and flow and the shots and everything. And that was beautiful. So I'm not trying to diss that. However, I just didn't like the message it was giving.
This is just going to end up being my favorite episode, specifically just for the one line and Daemon's reaction. I swear, just go back and rewatch it. It's so funny.
Oh, we have a comment.
Yeah, we do have a comment. I've been enjoying the critical outlook since most of the other folks I watch or listen to praise it very much.
Wow.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I'll be honest, we've talked about this privately off screen where we were not quite understanding why everybody is just so in love with the writing of the show, and we're not trying to be jerks. We're not trying to be mean. Like this is somebody's creative process, creative writing, and I mean, we're just not getting it because it doesn't follow the patterns of what would make a show good. You know, it doesn't seem particularly innovative. It doesn't seem particularly clever or inventive. You know, it doesn't set up the characters at all. It seems like no time was spent there. And it's just really surprising to me because I would have figured for the show, like, yeah, I didn't expect it to be as good as Game of Thrones. Like, it's a sequel. But I figured that they'd at least have the characters in order, you know, the writing like better, like some intrigue. This is just, it's very strange.
Yeah, it's very strange. I do find it very strange too. I think I haven't read a lot of really much of the positive reviews or anything. I'd be curious to get into it, but I really do suspect that it's just nostalgia for the way something looks rather than feels. And a lot of, I do find, you know, when something does come out, you give it time and it fades away if it wasn't good. So I think there's a lot of like the recentism. So like, you know, this is my favorite movie. I just watched it. Give them 2 months and then suddenly that's not their favorite movie anymore. So it's just what's, you know, the freshness of it, I think people probably are getting into. And I do feel like the way it looks is very interesting. It is very nice to, you know, see more costumes and more hairdos and more areas of the world and that kind of stuff all over again. But that those, again, like for me, those weren't like the key reasons why I was into it. Like I'm definitely a story character person. Those are the things I like the most, and this is lacking in those things. Whereas, you know, the original series wasn't lacking in those things, and it also had all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I think we have another comment.
Yeah. Oh, good morning to you, Chris. Thanks for watching the show. And yeah, I absolutely appreciate it. And Bear UNLV again says, I'm curious to see how much more time skips they do. It's definitely been quite jarring. Yeah. I mean,
90 years.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, like episode 9 will already be past like the Game of Thrones arc. Maybe that's the sequel to it 3 years in the future.
The final episode is just like redoing the final episode of Game of Thrones.
You know, it is. I will say one of you know, I've gotten to learn more about writing by being around Maria and being around Sesh and seeing, you know, what they say. And one of the things that they do very much get on you about is time skips. Generally that's a giant no-no, and to do it so frequently It's just ridiculous. I think at least in this episode, it at least seemed that the time skip wasn't much. You know, he was the king of the Narrow Sea. He came over like a little bit. It seemed like I don't know, a year maybe, 6 months. I'm not
I mean,
sure.
the Allison had a baby.
Yeah, she did.
So.
But you know, and then they're shown again. We're going to be skipping another like 3 years or 2 years or something really short, and
all while they sandbag the drama. Every single
they
potential moment of drama, they get rid of. They're like afraid of it. I don't understand it.
It's very weird to see that. Like, they absolutely do sandbag the drama, and I'm really struggling to find, like, why are any of these characters' stories important at all? Like,
yeah.
What does any of this have to do other than just this is the bloodline of Daenerys? And why does telling these stories of this particular bloodline 200 years prior matter at all? Like, what happens in this era that's important or relevant at all to anything later on down the road? Or that's even just interesting?
Yeah. And I mean, again, you know, that's one of those things that I think could be argued about, but as you well know, it's whoever gets the script in and it gets approved and goes through the process and, you know, it gets greenlit. But it does make sense that either going to a sequel to Game of Thrones, which I actually think is the wrong move, quite frankly, because I don't think it'll live up to the original, or do a prequel but deal with, say, like the Doom of Valeria or something like that would have been a little bit better.
I've heard of the short prequel where, you know, we get revealed this, or we see the in-depth story of the stuff that was, you know, later on revealed in the original series. You know, like Jon's mother and all of that, and seeing the more in-depth side of it. And I think, you know, obviously if they have such a rich history with that era, they could have done it. So I'm just really curious what's going on with this era that makes it important at all. Like, I still can't figure it out.
Yeah. Anyway, though, it looks like we are already about 11, 12 minutes past where we normally end, and we're glad to get some conversation with you guys, the audience, and we're glad that you enjoyed it. And you know, just thanks for watching till the end. We do really appreciate all your support, and we're hoping again that we brought some intelligent conversation and hopefully some laughs as well tonight outside the depression. And it really is. It's your support that makes this worth it. So. If you like the show, please like, share, subscribe, heart. And if you hated the show, please make sure to like it twice, because that does really show us. We track that independently, and you know, we know what makes a better show in the end. So our next episode will be Monday, September 20th at, again, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time. So until next time, could you do it better?